Game over.
We are back with our Honey's Horror Review series. We are continuing on reviewing the Halloween franchise, and we just got done watching Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 from 2009. This is the follow up, of course, to his 2007 remake of the original film. And, walking away from this one, how do you feel about it?
I guess if you view it as a standalone movie, like just that, or like just H2 and then the previous one, I thought it was a good movie. I mean, I knew what it was when I was going into it. You know, Rob Zombie, and he's, you know, a professional at that weird stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good movie. It's definitely still not like the original, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, see, this one's very interesting for me right now. When this one came out, I mean, it was pretty much panned by critics and fans alike for the most part. It's considered to be essentially one of the worst ones, and I haven't really seen it since it first came out, or at least since the Blu-ray had come out right here. I haven't watched it all the way through, but I remember my first theater experience of this movie, of course, it being very dark and very loud, and just when you watch this movie, the sheer brutality that occurs, even more so than the previous one. I remember just like watching it, and I'm just almost taken aback by just how aggressive and just Michael is in this movie, and just like it's almost like shock. Like it wasn't even like watching the movie being like, oh, this movie sucks, or it's like, oh, it's a pretty good movie. It was just like, my goodness, what is happening? It's just taken to such a whole other level. And watching it now, I still kind of get that feeling, but I walked away from this one actually not hating it as much as I thought I was. Because I do remember it being, it's just like, yeah, I mean, there was just some interesting elements, but like I said, the brutality element is just like the shock value of it. But walking away from this one, I didn't really hate it as much. And one of the main reasons being is that, yeah, I mean, as the years have passed, and, you know, knowing what the Halloween films were meant to be and what we're, you know, in the portion that we're into now, you know, kind of going back to form, I looked at it kind of as its own thing. It's taken the Halloween element, but it's veering off into Rob Zombie's territory. He's doing what he wanted to do with it, and I'm just looking at it as that, and I think it kind of works really because of Laurie and the impact that the whole situation had on her, and you're kind of watching her from the psychological point of view. Do you agree with that? Like, how do you feel about Laurie's journey throughout this movie?
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it except that. It's.
Do you think you could relate to her, like understand? Like, do you think at times maybe she was being maybe too drastic at like kind of early on? Do you think she was seeming maybe kind of bitchy, or did you actually kind of understand that angle a little bit more, or at least as it went on?
You know, honestly, that whole discussion can probably be its own episode if you really want to dig into the psychology.
Yeah.
But I can understand the mental stuff, the rigors and whatnot. So, yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because the whole movie, I mean, it's picking up right where the first one left off, and then it kind of goes into this whole hospital sequence, where it seems like okay, and just like this, this is the follow up. But then you realize it's a whole dream sequence, and then but that whole sequence in and of itself almost kind of works as like a short film when you look at it, because you watch it and then it ends. You watch it for like 15-20 minutes, and then you find like it's a dream sequence. And you're like, oh, okay, well, did you think that was an okay decision, or do you think that should have been a part of it? Because I liked actually that whole scene itself, but do you think it should have been like a part of the actual narrative, or you think it would worked as its own moment there as a dream?
I don't know. I just kind of went with it, you know, because Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I liked it because it made me think of, you know, the original, you know, Halloween 2.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and I think Rob Zombie, I don't think he intended to try to like, you know, pay homage to that. I think that was just natural progression, what he wanted to do. At least supposedly
and
that's
then
what he
you
says.
look back at it like, oh, okay, well that kind of works.
Yeah, it really is like its own mini Halloween 2 remake when you kind of break it down. But yeah, so it's following up because it's 2 years after after the events of the previous movie and just the after effects on Laurie, and you just see Michael just kind of roaming about, as people would say, like he's just kind of a bum. He's just roaming about the land, just doing whatever and stuff. And so, but watching it again, it's pretty much his own separate thing, like what he's doing as opposed to what Laurie's doing. It's like right here on one side, on like a side of the story, you have Laurie dealing with the aftermath of all that and the psychological issues. Side B, you have Michael just kind of roaming about, doing his thing, and you're wondering if he's actively looking to try to converge with Laurie, or if he's just kind of going about his business. And you have kind of side C as well with Loomis. Now Loomis in this movie, he is a straight up a-hole. I mean, it really is a major flip. It's kind of like what Halloween 5 did, where it kind of made him just a little bit more kooky and just more pissed off, it seemed.
Yeah.
And this one is definitely a drastic change, though. Did you think it worked for this, or did you think that, because I know you really enjoyed Donald Pleasance and you thought Michael McDowell did do a decent enough job for what he was. Did you think it worked for his character in this being the way he was?
Having himself gone through what happened at the end of the first one, I guess that could have flipped a switch. I mean, it was a big switch.
Yeah.
But I feel like the original Loomis probably wouldn't have acted in that way. I mean,
Yeah.
he was. We know what happened with those movies, and he was burnt up, and that was kind of cool, and it did screw with them, but he didn't turn into this raging a-hole.
Yeah.
You know, profiteering off of the misery and all that. So
Yeah, I mean, because what Loomis was, of course, originally meant to be, I mean, he was meant to be the understanding guy, and seeing what Michael was, and him wanting to help, him wanting to stop the madness. And you get that in the first Rob Zombie version, but this one's a complete flip. You know, so again, seeing it as its own thing, it really almost should have just been its own movie and not have been a Halloween 2. Because I could have seen, like, again, you just take out the Halloween elements and see this as its own thing where an incident occurred. A girl is dealing with the psychological trauma of that situation. You have the psychiatrist from that who's just kind of profiting off of that in a way, you know, but he dealt with it. He's like, I'm done. Like, I am done with it. I'm not having it anymore. I'm just going to do my own thing. Screw it. I can't deal with it. And so, like I said, and it's as its own thing, I felt like watching it this time around, it was actually kind of fascinating to me seeing all these different elements, because you see the three main core, especially with Michael himself, like I said, where he becomes more brutal, where he's literally grunting in this movie. He's grunting.
I noticed that. Like,
he is knife happier like than you've ever seen him before. He stomps a dude's head in.
Yeah.
All of this, I mean, again, all the three main like core characters are really dealing with this extra layer of just like exhaustion and just like this sense of just hatred for like everything. And then you have some surrounding characters that are far more likable. Again, Brackett coming back, Brad Dourif, who you get more of in this movie. And I would say that he is probably one of my favorite characters actually throughout the whole series. Like I would say close behind Loomis, because again, what Brad Dourif does, he's very, very likable in this movie, and all he does, you can tell he just genuinely
there
loves.
were a couple other familiar faces, but
and cares for his daughter, and of course in this one he's taken in Laurie, so they're all just like living together, just trying to go about their lives. And I would say that a lot of tragedy comes from him and Annie and his relationship, because they're kind of like collateral damage, considering what Michael did and him coming after Laurie and that whole involvement. So you would agree that he was really good in this movie? Cause
yeah.
Cause
I don't think he's had a bad role.
No, of course not. No, he's legitimately a great actor. But again, so for me, I know the whole series is typically like you're looking to just see a body count, and you might have some sad deaths here and there. But in this one, I would say it probably did have legitimately the most heartfelt death of them all with Annie. Because, I mean, you saw what he went through the last movie. You saw she was near death, found her that way. And you get this one where it's the exact same scenario, except this time she's gone. And you see the tragedy on his face and just him dealing with that situation. It was actually a real heartfelt moment. I was like, wow. They actually did do a really good job with that part. I'll give them credit for that, to say the least. I mean, would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, and again, going through Michael's side, the side of things, he's really just constantly running into other a-holes as well. So you're kind of like watching him like just take all these people out in these brutal ways, and you're just kind of like, it's like, yeah, okay, Michael's doing this thing. It's like, well, I have really nothing to root for these people until you get, of course, to the end where it all converges and you see the better characters kind of get killed off. I mean. And so, getting to the ending, did you feel that the ending worked for you? Did you understand what they were going for?
I think so. I mean, the kid being different was weird for me.
Yeah, I mean, a couple years later, of course, kids, they sprout up quick, so I can understand that. Yeah.
And those, like, memory dream sequences were bizarre, but then again, I knew what I was getting myself into.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think that I understand it at least a little bit, but it's still just beyond my grasp.
Now, we did watch the unrated director's cut. I think, so some things are a little bit different, but I think the ending, particularly in terms of how clear it was when Laurie died, I have to go back and watch the original ending. But I think basically it was like she did die in that portion where you see her at the end in the white room and all that. That was kind of like her last thought. So they all pretty much died at the very end of this movie. And so, yeah, I mean, again, everything really honestly worked for me just looking at it as its own thing. It worked for me actually a lot more this time around than I expected it to. I would just say when it gets down to the ending and the stuff like with the mom and the visions were probably a bit much if those had been taken out and not played so much into the ending. With like her being held down like by, because it's like they were doing that thing in like Halloween 5 where they have that psychological connection sort of deal, and I felt like that probably could have been taken out a bit. But
yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of muddles the ending a bit. If they had done something a little bit different, I could have gone along with it a lot more. But other than that, though, I mean, again, I don't think as completely its own thing, I didn't completely hate it.
No. If I could change one thing, I probably would have changed that one scene, because that was gross. And
the dog, you mean?
Yeah, it could have been like a deer, because
they've been saying that since the beginning, that Michael loves his doggy dinner. He just does. I
know.
Of course, this one's Rob Zombie, so of course they show him like taking a couple bites here.
I know, it was like, oh really? Did they have to? Oh, okay, well, yeah. Come on.
I wonder if he puts the rest in his bag, so if he gets like hungry, exactly. Yeah, you said, ha ha. Yes, I went there. Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
I could have done without that, but yeah, it was. Yeah, the kills and definitely.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, yeah, I mean, as its own thing, I'd probably give it honestly a solid 3 at least, just because again, I had a different reaction than even I was expecting myself. I know it's hated again. Yeah, Halloween, as the original was intended, it needs to be that. But for what Rob Zombie did, him doing his own thing, for what this was, not completely terrible. I think it really worked on a lot of interesting character levels, and that's how I feel. So. Anyway, that is our review of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. We hope you enjoyed, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.